Oh, is it on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, today is March the 28th, 2019, and the time is 1:29. And this is Elizabeth Bennett.
Alex Irvin.
Interviewing Miss Deborah Browning. We are in the Jones Building. It's South Georgia State College in Georgia, and we are conducting an interview as part of a project to record the history of the College of Coastal Georgia. And can you please tell us your full name and spell it first and last?
Sure. It's Deborah Browning, Deborah, Browning, Browning.
Let's start by talking a little bit about your life prior to your time at Coastal College of Georgia.
Let's see. I've been here quite a while. So before I came to the college, I worked for a privately owned home health company, which was one of the largest in the nation, actually. And I worked there 9 years and really thought I would be retiring from there. And a lot of things happened, really long, kind of sad story, and the whole company folded. So I was lucky enough to interview here and got the job and been here loving it ever since. So.
That's awesome. Okay. When did you begin working at CCGA?
In November of '99. So 20 years, almost.
I know that you are now the coordinator of the College of Arts and Sciences, and you used to be the administrative assistant to the VP of Student Affairs. What big changes on campus were you involved in while you were the assistant of the vice president?
Goodness, actually a whole lot. A lot of folks don't realize, but student affairs really encompasses a whole lot that goes on campus. You're tasked with any kind of big events that happen to coordinate them, pull them together, and that kind of thing. So I've been involved in presidential inaugurations, so many groundbreakings, just trying to think. Those are really big. Goodness, the campus housing to me is one of the biggest, that was one of the biggest changes that has happened. But just so many events. I'm actually drawing a blank on more, but I'm sure I'll think of them as we go on. Yeah.
So you mentioned the dormitories.
Mm-hmm.
They were being built. What other construction has been built since your time here?
A lot of the buildings. So before there weren't many academic buildings at all, and the names have changed. But this one, the Jones Building, has been one that's been around. But the campus center, that's new. Let's see. There are any other new buildings? Oh, the Health Sciences Building, that's a new one. And then all of the older buildings had all been remodeled and reconfigured to keep up with, the changes. So.
Okay. Do you remember any particular controversies that happened with building the new buildings, or was there conflict with people?
Not necessarily conflict, but I will say that there were a lot of growing pains during that process. It was there was a huge change for everyone, and we had a interim president who came in, and that was her charge, Dr. Valerie Hepburn, and she was really good, and she did not play around, and it was hard times, hard work, everyone. So we all felt it. But, it had to happen. It turned out beautifully under her direction. But it was pretty painful, and I'm sure there was controversy that went on during that process.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we just all hung in there, and, now you see how far it's come along. So
Definitely. Okay. you coordinate the annual commencement ceremony.
That I put that in there because that was really a personal claim to fame for me, and a lot of folks who are newer have no idea that I was even involved in that process. And about a year and a half after I started working in student affairs, I found out, we're doing graduation now. Well, that meant Deb was doing graduation, and I did everything from the initial, all I got was the list from the registrar's office that said, here's all your graduates. So, oh my goodness, at the details that went into that was sending out the letters, getting back then nothing was electronic, nothing online. So it was the paper RSVPs and how many guests, and we did it in the gym, and it only held a maximum of 1,000 to 1,200 people, so you could only have so many guests, and that was always a fight. How many, some people wanted to bring 50 guests to graduation, and so that was tough every year. I mean, so much, from the flowers to the setting up the gym to the musicians getting there. I mean, it was me, and it was hard to let go, and I'm really in a good place with it now that it's back in its rightful office, and I help every year, and I love it, and I enjoy that aspect of it now, just to be able to not have all of that on me. But it's something that you take so much pride in, and then when people realize, oh wow, I had no idea she did that. So yeah, so that's actually what I will always reference my time is graduation, working here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many years did you work as the coordinator?
I did that for about, from probably 2000 to 2011 or 2013. So probably about 12 years, somewhere around in there. So it was a long span.
What's the number of, how many graduate students graduated the first year you did it versus now? Has the number changed? Has it grown?
It has. It really has. And back then we were a community college.
Yeah.
But our graduating class was probably between 300 and 400 students, and then maybe 100 of them would opt to walk at the ceremony. So those are the ones that you had to really, really worry about, were the ones who were walking. So, and the last time we held it in the gym, I think about 120 walked, and that was a big deal. That was a lot of students to fit in there and a lot to make happen. So when Dr. Hepburn came in and we moved it to Jekyll Island, it's wonderful, and it's been wonderful ever since. So, and we were actually, when the new convention center was built on Jekyll, the college, we were the very first people in there that held the event.
That's
so
cool.
It was very cool. Yeah. Yeah.
When was this?
That was in 2000 and, oh gosh. She started in 2008, 2009. So maybe 2009, 2010, somewhere along there. Yeah. So I'm losing track of my dates and my timelines, but yeah, somewhere along there. But don't hold me to that date.
Do you mind if I ask a question real fast? This is Dr. Hector Montford. So Deb, were there any close calls whenever you were the coordinator for all of this in terms of getting things together? Did you ever have to scramble for anything, or was it always really smooth and easy?
No. I was so detail-oriented, and we actually would plot out a paper seating chart to the point of I would have the graduates' names in their chairs, and they would show up for practice, and they would know where they were supposed to sit. So I can remember it was go time. Students were processing in, and we were literally missing a chair. We were one chair short, and that student was standing there, and everybody sat down. And I was like, oh my God. But I just ran to the back of the gym over to the side, and there was luckily a chair. And oh my goodness, so I slid it under them, but that was holy cow, how awful. So, but you worry about everybody knowing, but after the fact, not everybody even noticed or saw it, so it was just one of those things where I was freaking out, but not everybody even realized it, so, phew. But yeah, there were a lot of close calls like that. Yeah.
So how has the department, or how has the College of Arts and Sciences evolved since you started as coordinator? Like, what things have changed?
Well, really, I hadn't been here long enough to
Okay.
even to speak on that. I'm still learning so much here. So I started here this summer. This May will be 2 years. So I'm relatively new. So really, not a lot has changed
Okay.
for me. So
Weren't you the department coordinator for other colleges on this campus?
no, I've only been in student affairs and then here for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what degrees have been added to the College of Arts and Sciences?
The most recent one and the one that's really growing the fastest is our environmental sciences area. And trying to think what else. That's probably the biggie right now that I can think of. And there's a lot of interest in that program, so it's growing every semester. It gets bigger.
That's awesome. Do you know what clubs or sports have been added since your time here started?
You know, it's funny how things come back full circle. So even though we were a smaller campus back when we were a community college, and even you know, just not that long ago, our student life was so vibrant, and we had a club for everything. I mean, everyone wanted to have their club, and they were vibrant and active. Would take trips, and then, you know, through the years things change, funding changes, rules change, things become harder, a lot more red tape, so that discourages, you know, and it becomes a lot of work for faculty advisors to run a student org. So sometimes they die off because that interest is lost. The students that were once so on fire for that particular program aren't around anymore. And then they come back around, and you know, you just pull out those old constitutions and say, hey, this was once a club. Let's get it started back up again. So I don't know that, I can't even think of any new ones that weren't around at some point in time that just didn't like birth themselves. So, yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are you involved in participating in any of the sports or going to the games and such?
Not like I should. No, I really don't. I do. I like the fun when the faculty and the students or the staff do games like that, to go out and have a kickball or softball with the staff and faculty. That's a lot of fun. But as far as the basketball and I really don't go that often. So when it's time to go home, I'm ready to go home.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
So what would you like to change about your department as coordinator? Like, what are your goals to do here?
You know what? I like I say, I hadn't been here long enough to even know what to change, but I love it. It's funny how you're so afraid to make a change when you're so comfortable where you're at for so long. So it was a huge deal for me to move here. But I love it, and it has been great to see this side of the campus, how it operates, the academic side, because you don't really know until you're, you know, involved in it, what all goes on, and then you just have so much more respect for, you know, the other side of the campus. And I just love it here, getting to know the faculty, because when you're student affairs or academic affairs, you tend to stay in your own little neighborhood and don't really, I mean, you collaborate, but not as much as you would like to. So it's been so good to get to know the faculty, because I never really knew faculty before other than the advisors of clubs and that kind of thing. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm loving it. There's still so much. I mean, I'm learning every day. So I wouldn't know what to change or a goal right now, other than I just like coming to work. So,
That's good.
yeah.
What did inspire you to come here in the first place?
I don't know that it was inspiration, to be perfectly honest. It was just a good break at the right time. So, and it was a really, really, really fun, my interview day. Oh my goodness, y'all. When I rolled up on this campus, student affairs consisted of the most colorful people, let me tell you, the most diverse group of people I have ever met in my life. And it was the most interesting interview. I walked in and I ran into this lady on the staircase as I was going up the stairs, and she stopped and she looked at me and she sized me up and she says, all right. And I was like, okay. So I had no idea. Well, when I sit around the table, she was there. She was one of the directors, and oh my goodness, Miss C.A. Lee, she worked here forever and ever, and if you ever get a chance to interview her, I highly recommend it. She's still around, and she is a mess. I don't know how else to describe her. But yeah, it was just one of those things. I came in, and it was just a really fun interview, and I was lucky enough I got the job. But they did, one thing scary back then, I was interviewing, and they were like, okay, we're going to give you a little, back in the day we had typewriters or whatever, and I had always worked on like a typewriter, computers, I knew how to use computers and we had them, but not like we do now in advance. But she's like, we're going to give you a little test. I need you to go in. We had the testing center right next door. And she said, are you familiar with Excel? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So, yeah. So I had to create, I forget what my test was, but I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it. And I created this Excel spreadsheet thingy, and I was like, thank you, Lord. So I've come a long way, let me tell you, from that interview.
You mentioned how we have a lot of computers here nowadays. How has the growing technology changed your day-to-day?
Oh gosh, like unbelievably simplified it and has made it so much more, efficient. So I couldn't even imagine going back. That would just be awful. So yeah, thank goodness for. But I still have in my I was actually going to bring y'all some funny random things that I had saved and found. But, the square floppy disk, are y'all familiar with those? Yeah, so we had and then the CD-ROMs, that was the next big thing. And so I still have a lot of files and stuff that's saved on those. Oh, and a zip drive and all of that. Yeah, it was like the big Mac Daddy floppy disk, so it held a lot of stuff. So yeah, the big zip drive. So we've evolved a lot. So now we just have the little flash drives that are small and hold a ton of stuff, whereas those only held a gig or two. And you'd have your little disk and it'd be full, and you're like, oh my God, I got to get another one. So you have a whole set of disks, one of 5 for whatever project you were working on. So yeah, come a long way.
Definitely.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for us current students or faculty that you'd want to give us
Just
for
surviving college?
Yeah.
I say stick to it. It's so painful going through it, and I've always been very compassionate and had a heart for students because it's a tough time, not only the academic part of it, but just in general. You're trying to figure out so much and balance so much, but you're going to get through it. My daughter just graduated in last December, and I thought, if I don't do anything else in my life, she will graduate. But I would just tell her, it's not forever. It's not forever, and then that's yours. Nobody can take it away, so stick with it. And she did, so that's what I say, just hang in there. You're going to be walking across that stage before you know it. It feels so good. And I'll probably be down there shaking your hand, because that's my role now. I stand at the end of the, and help people as they come off the stage. So, yes, that's right.
Do you have specific memories of faculty that you have developed relationships with, or particular students that you want to share a story or two about?
I have so many. When I tell you I have formed some of the most special, lasting friendships and bonds here with folks, I mean, I really, really have. I still get together with a group of ladies. One was a student affairs, and then the others were, they were all professors. And we go to lunch. We try to get together once a month, and they are just my dear special friends, and they give me the, this is how it's going to be. Just hang in there, Deb. You'll be retired and can take longer than an hour before you know it. So, but just so many. And the sad thing is I have had some really special people here that have passed away. It's just Miss Joyce Jackson. There's a tree planted right out in front of the Jones Building here that's dedicated to Miss Jackson. But she was a math teacher, and she was an advisor, and she was loved by so many. But oh my gosh, she was a lot of fun. She was a hoot. She had a mouth on her. She had colorful language. She always had a cup of coffee in her hand, and it was spilling everywhere. And I love Miss Jackson. And there was an award that they would give every year, the Joyce Jackson Award or something. So anyway, she was very instrumental. We had an advising center back then too, and the faculty would volunteer their time, and she would always help out with advising and put together orientation packets and all that. So Miss Jackson's a real special one, Miss Joyce Jackson. Yeah. And there's a graduation program with her picture in it. One year we dedicated it to her. So, and I don't know if y'all talk with Miss Linda in the library who manages the archives.
No, ma'am, not much.
She's got everything over there. So if there was anything specific you wanted to look for, she would be able to find it for you.
We're heading that way eventually.
Are you? Yeah. She's got it really organized now. It used to be a mess to try to find anything, but she's really, really done a lot of work. So.
What do you want to see in this college in the future? It's hard to shape this question. What kind of changes would you want to see in the Coastal College of Georgia? I'm just so proud of where we are now, as to how we just weren't what's the word I'm looking for, respected the way we are now, and I would like to see that continue to grow, where we're really, really a destination college, and people know who we are right off the cuff when you say the name, and oh yeah. So I know we'll never be UGA or anything, nor do we want to be, but just to keep growing and becoming a real desirable college. So that makes me proud. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't think I have any more questions for her.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank
Actually,
you all.
if you don't mind, while we have you on tape, Deb,
Okay.
can I ask you a couple more questions?
Sure.
Let's go back to that time you worked for Student Affairs,
Mhm.
and the events you guys are putting on.
Right.
Do you remember any of the events in terms of any that stick out in your mind, or any that were really big events that you did on a regular basis, or?
Well, orientation's always been huge, and student affairs has always been involved in that. But let's see, I want to say Dr. Hepburn's inauguration, that was a big deal. That was a huge deal. I mean, you had all the regents here on campus, so it was all the the community VIPs, and it was one of those where we really, it was the first time that you put on an event and you had to step up your game, because we had to shuttle people, and there were so many logistics involved. But I wish, there have been so many events, big good events, and I'm just drawing a blank, but that one does stand out in my mind. And groundbreaking ceremonies, we did a lot of those with the new
The health sciences building or life sciences building?
health science, with the different wings that opened in the housing. So those were really big events.
Was there any sort of celebration whenever we transitioned from 2-year to 4-year? Was there some sort of something marking that moment? Or was it just kind of a thing?
I think there were a lot of smaller, I can't think of, there were a lot of celebratory events going on at the time, and foundation members and things that happened, I want to say maybe more off campus
Okay.
than on campus, but there were, yeah, I'm sure there was a huge party for that. So, yes, yes.
And before we wrap up here, what was the campus like before the 4-year conversion? Like, can you remember being on campus and what the students were like, as opposed to how things have developed since then? As the campus, as it grows, has some of that, a lot of interviewers have been saying things like, we felt like the campus was a lot more intimate earlier on, and it's kind of become a little more of a, not distant, but more isolated nowadays.
Well, I think there's more student traffic all the time and buzzing around. So there's a lot more activity, just ground, people walking around that you see. Before, it was pretty dry. You'd walk around campus and you wouldn't necessarily see anybody. And now you just see people all the time. But going back to that, when we were a community college and a smaller campus, our student life and SGA, the events we would put on then, and it was because we didn't have as many restrictions, I think, with student activity fees, and things weren't so controlled and regulated. Everyone would participate. So, and we actually would hold them out in front of the Jones building. That was like the campus hub then.
Oh, really?
And things have moved out. Yeah, right in that center area. And so we would have these huge cookouts, and I mean, every student on campus would be there. Every teacher would be there. The music would be blaring. I mean, it was just a lot of fun, and you could just hear it, and people were just always interacting. And then for Christmas and Thanksgiving, we would have big potlucks. Like the college would provide the meat, the turkey, or the ham, but everyone would bring a covered dish, and that's like unheard of now. And our little hospitality committee would set up, and I mean, we would decorate. It was just, it was a big time. So there was a lot of intimate family kind of connections then that you just don't have now.
It's just gotten bigger. That's
Just gotten bigger, yeah. And I think too with the restrictions and the rules, because God forbid a faculty or staff person eats a piece of chicken that was paid for with student activity
yes.
fees. So we can't do that. So you have to be real careful with that. Unless you make it known that it's an event that can be and partially paid for out of other. So, yeah. So I think, and that just happens. It is what it is. So you just have to be careful with that kind of stuff. So.
And one final question for you. So I've asked other people this in the interviews I've sat in on. Looking back on things, what one thing would you bring back from the past, from this college, to have now, once again, that's no longer around? It could be an object, it can be an event, a building.
A person.
A person, yeah.
Gosh.
My camera shuts off at 30 minutes, I just have to hit stop and then re-record real quick.
We should be done by. We should be done. All right.
It's at 29.
I got you, okay.
So that's what that noise is, kind of background.
Okay, so.
That's hard. And, I think those fun times, I would love to see that happen again. But I don't know if anyone's mentioned about the pool that we had on campus.
Actually, a lot of people have mentioned that.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing in people's memories about that.
Yeah,
pool there,
yeah. So, that was a big deal because it was an Olympic-sized pool, and and it would bring in. We had a continuing education center, and so we had a lot more community involvement because we could rent that space and offer programs like that for the community, and they would use the pool for summer programs. So that's what pops in my mind. I'm sure I'll think of something else later, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions, guys?
What if the pool get taken away?
I think just to modify that building for more classroom space and probably liability too, you know, that kind of thing. So, but with the growing of the college, they just needed it. So they filled it in and there you go. We definitely needed the classrooms. We still need more. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're
for sharing your
welcome.
time
Thank
and
you
your
all.
story.
I enjoyed this. It's fun to reminisce.
All right.
Yes.
All right.